call the meeting to order. Good afternoon and welcome to the monthly meeting of the City of Des Moines Zoning Board of Adjustment. This board has power under the Iowa law and the zoning ordinance of the City of Des Moines to hear requests for variances and exceptions from the regulations in the zoning ordinance, conditional use permits, and appeals from the decision of the staff and the administration of the zoning ordinance, and to make decisions in such matters. This is an open and informal meeting as currently being recorded. The board's members have received a copy of the agenda, staff report, and recommendation. Copies of the agenda, staff report, and recommendations are available to the public in the two trays on my far left. We should have a full 7-member board, and I'll start with introductions on my far left. There's Jeff Clayton. Next to him is Mel Pins. Next to him is Linda Westergaard. On the far right, we'll have Brooke Rosenberg. Next to him will be Cindy Smith. Next to her is Tom Clark Sr. My name's Bill Gray. Representing City Legal today, we have Mike Kelly. On city staff, we have Eric Lundy, City Planner, Bert Dross, City Planner, and Sue Ann Donovan, the Zoning Enforcement Officer. The board is required to base its decision in each case upon the criteria established by law for the type of relief sought by the applicant. The law applicable to each case is identified in the written staff report. If the facts, as determined by the board, demonstrate that the criteria established by law for granting the relief have been satisfied, then the board must grant the relief. Otherwise, the board must deny the relief. All speakers are requested to focus their comments upon those facts that demonstrate whether or not the criteria established by law have been satisfied. Each appeal will be announced in order, and the staff will present a brief explanation of the appeal. Any written comments received by the staff prior to the hearing will be distributed to the board or otherwise identified. All speakers are requested to speak from the podium over here on my far right and start their presentation by giving both their names and address. The applicant or representative of the applicant is allowed to speak first and will be allowed 10 minutes to present their appeal. Anyone else present in support of the appeal will then be allowed 5 minutes each to present his or her comments. Anyone present in opposition to the appeal will then be allowed 5 minutes each to present his or her comments. The applicant then will be allowed 3 minutes for rebuttal or other closing comments. The meeting will then be closed to public comment and the board will make a decision. That decision and reason will be announced. Items listed on the consent portion of the agenda will not be individually discussed and will be considered for approval in accordance with the recommendation in the staff report unless an individual present or a member of the board requests that the item be removed from the consent agenda and separately considered under the public hearing agenda. The decisions of this board can only be appealed to the Post County District Court. If you believe you have been harmed by an error made by this board, your only remedy is to seek relief through the District Court within 30 days of the filing of the board's decision and order. If you believe the zoning regulations applied by this board are wrong, you may petition the City Council to change those regulations. All material written or otherwise used today as part of any presentation will become a permanent part of the record and will not be returned. If you have cell phones out there, we ask you to turn them off or at least put them on vibrate because they're very disruptive to the process. If we need to, we'll probably be taking a break around the 3 or 3:30 time frame. Now, as I mentioned in the opening comments, we have a consent agenda. I'm going to read through the items that are on that, and if somebody's here to speak against those, I'll need to know that. Item 1 is an exception at 1208 East 20th Court. Item 2 is a variance at 3212 Forest Avenue. Item 3 is an exception at 4319 Sheridan Avenue. Item 4 is a variance at 1402 East McKinley. Item 5 is to amend a conditional use permit at 3300 Vandalia Road. And item 6 is an exception to 2745 Sheridan Avenue. Now we're going to vote on them all at once unless somebody's here to speak against. Are you here to speak against?
Yeah, so 2745 Sheridan.
Okay, we'll take that off. Is there anybody else here to speak against items 1 through 5? Any board members have any objections? I'll entertain a motion then to accept the consent agenda.
I'll move approval of the consent agenda, including items 1 through 5, for approval of the variances, exceptions, special permits requested therein, subject to staff recommendations.
Okay. Is there a second? Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, raise your hand and say aye. Aye. Motion carries 7-0. So if you're here to speak in support of items 1 through 5 that have been approved, you're free to stick around and watch your city at work, or you can go and get your permits and get started. Thank you.
Yeah, item 8.
Oh.
The North High side.
I was, yeah, I missed it, Bert, so might as well.
We also withdrew 7, right?
Huh?
What did we miss?
Item 8, we were thinking about putting it on the consent, but we'll just hear it.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, now we're going to the public hearing agenda. Item 6, an exception at 2745 Sheridan.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, item number 6 is for an exception of 6 inches over the maximum allowed 17 feet of height for a garage, and the appeal would allow for retention of a 30-foot by 32-foot detached garage that is in the rear yard. The subject property is located on the north side of Sheridan Avenue, just to the east of 30th Street. It contains a single-family dwelling with a garage that was built in the rear yard. The garage was built beginning, I believe, in 2003. They took out a building permit for it at the time, but during the inspection phases, they failed a few of the inspections, and they were in the process of getting those fixed, and they never really came back for the final inspection. So it's been hanging out there for several years, and they're now trying to get it legitimized. One of the issues they had was that it was built at a height of 17.5 feet. They were only allowed to build 17 feet. So in order to get the zoning remedied, they have to get this exception. There are some other building code issues that they have worked through since then. So I believe once they get this exception today, they would be allowed to be issued their certificate of occupancy. The size of the garage is the maximum allowed for the property. It does cover 20% of the rear yard area, so we're not concerned with the size of the garage. Isn't the concern today. It's just the 6 inches of additional height. Here's another photo, and then a close-up of the garage. And we inquired, or the building people have been through it, and there's a workshop on the west half of the garage and then a little bit of a storage loft up above. We do have conditions recommended that that it can't be used as a living space, and it can't be used for a home occupation unless this board grants a conditional or a special permit for such. So we felt that it was pretty minor. We've recommended approval. And here's the consent map. We had one card come back in support. Are there any questions?
It's on a concrete slab, I'm assuming. It looks like it. Does the approach have to have any concrete? Notice it's gravel right up to it.
No, it doesn't. If it were a new property, they would have to have pavement up to the front of the house. But since it has some grandfather rights, I did look into that.
Okay. Any other questions for staff? Thanks, Bert. Applicant or representative of the applicant?
I don't know how to show this little video, but I hung a tape measure down, and I don't know how to data cable.
Probably just set it on here would be the best.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's gonna. Is there any way to enlarge? I don't know.
Yeah. We have the technology, believe me.
Cool. I don't have a data cable for it. That's why.
Okay.
But it's going to show, and the reason I came out as an expanded view and walked in, so I didn't want any kind of trickery on the photography, but it's 203 inches, which is under 17 feet. I don't know if you're going to be able to see it clearly on that screen. I don't know if you want to look at this on here.
I can see it there.
I don't know if you're going to be able to reach 200. But the tape measure is 3 inches, and the top of the tape measure is 200. And that's 16.9 feet. I mean, I don't know whether
Before we go much further, for the record, could you put your name and address? We need to know who's
Ryan
talking.
Jody, and I'm appearing for Chad Hatfield. He lives in Northern California, and it's for 2745 Sheridan.
Okay. Did you...
He's trying to rent this property.
Okay. Did you talk to staff about this, or is this the first time this measurement's coming up?
No, I don't know where they measured it the first time.
But you haven't taken this and shown to staff to dispute that.
I was just, the owner got a letter in the mail saying he needed to appear here. That's, I mean, I
Okay.
think it was Bill or Russ or what his name is.
I think Russ Legler was the inspector who had cited him for this, so
And
I guess I took the inspector at their word. So if that is in fact under 17 feet, you would need the appeal. He might have been measuring it, because it looks like there's some gravel that's been added there that might have
yeah, the
built up
approach,
the,
maybe it was measured without the approach or something.
because I know when I talked to Chad, he said they were bringing in several truckloads of gravel, so it looks like that gravel might be what raised the
Yeah, I think there was like 2 tons of gravel, but there was no, like you said, in 2003, this place was built, and over that time, you know, it's been lowered and washed away since the construction, but, like,
Well, let me ask you this. If we go ahead and grant the exception, well, you know, it's just like giving you the extra feet anyway. Would you object if we did that? I mean, you don't need it, but you're going to have to, there's other things you have to do as part of this, and you paid, and he paid us $300 to come in, so.
he's trying to get this place rented, and he's going to probably take a year up of his rent money to get this, all this, the house, the plumbing, he's got to get, it's all got to get permitted. It's owner occupied. So basically, you know, as well as I do, every owner does what they want to their house. And when you go to try to rent this out, I talked to him about it, and he didn't, I got an inspector in there, Gene Rife, I don't know. But he didn't know you had to jump through all these, you actually have to clear these permits before you pass
Yeah.
a rental
I
certificate
think
off.
that's the one catch-all that anybody gets cited for. So I guess it's up to you. If you want to dispute the height of it, we can do that, but I think what we're looking at here,
I just don't see how, you know, it's like the 6 inches is such a huge issue. It's been there for almost 10 years, and
Oh.
if there's a complaint or anything about it, he's never heard about it.
no. But what I'm saying is if we grant it to you, it's free space anyway, so if you wanted to add something on top, you could do it. Just my thought, but if you want to dispute it, I don't think you still have to have the permits and all the,
It's technically measured from the deck of the garage to the peak of the roof, and so
Right.
in both instances, it wasn't in the proper location in the video.
okay.
I got to get
So
this
we-
passed so I
It's-
can help him get his rental certificate.
well,
So I-
Well, the best thing I would say is that if you let us vote on it,
Oh,
Yeah.
God,
you might be- you might be better off and a lot happier.
Yeah.
I've never done this before.
Oh,
Okay.
no problem.
I'm voting for the guy.
okay.
I think we
I'm
might
not
be
complaining
too.
about him.
In fact, if you follow the written staff report, we were going to vote it in anyway, so.
So I'm wasting my time.
Oh, no. Hey, look.
We're glad to meet
If I was
you.
paying $300, I'd be talking
Yeah.
too.
So,
That's, if you want to add any more, I think we'll just go right to a vote then,
Okay.
if that's okay. All right. And I suppose better check, is anybody else here to speak in support? Anybody here to speak in opposition? Any last questions for staff? So the question I was going to ask is, were you okay with the stipulations? You're going to have to get the,
didn't know that the 1 through 6 was you just going to pass it.
yeah.
I thought,
That's okay. That's okay.
Well, we can get you started in that right direction then. Any last questions for staff? Okay, hearing none, we'll close the public portion and go to board decision. Mel?
I'd move staff recommendation for approval of the exception, subject to meeting building code and staff requirements therein.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. All those in favor, raise your hand and say aye. Motion carries 7-0. You got what you wanted. All right. Item 7 has been withdrawn. Item 8 is a variance at 501 Holcomb.
Subject property is the North High School. I better zoom out. And I'll pass we got 2 chart responsibilities. M1 district doesn't allow for type D signs, which would include the electronic signs that are changeable by our definition of our ordinance. And so any type of electronic changing bulletin board or anything is not permitted in an M1 district. In this case, we have a school in an M1 district, which is rare. I think it might be the only school we have in an industrial zone district at this point. They are proposing to put a changeable reader board sign right out in front on the Holcomb entrance in this location, 2nd Avenue, 6th Avenue. This is the area we're talking about. And it's going to be a combination type sign with a portion of it being the identification and then the changeable area being a 32 square foot area right in here. Staff is recommending approval of this, but we're looking to apply the same limitations that are applied to off-premises electronic signs, which will include what you see in 5 through 7 of the staff recommendation. 1 through 4, we're recommending it shall be considered constructed in conformance with this design with the masonry trim. Any sign shall be located outside of any vision clearance. The electronic component shall be limited to the 32 square feet that are proposed. It shall not scroll or flash or change at intervals of less than 60 seconds. So that gives them the ability to change the message every minute, but doesn't flash or change so often that it becomes a distraction to motorists going by. And then that the hours that it won't be lit between 9 p.m. at night and 7 a.m. in the morning. So during typical hours that people should be visiting the school, it would be allowed to be operated. We want the dimmer control, so on a very cloudy day, it's not so bright. It will adjust automatically. And then also the requirement that a licensed sign contractor be required to install it. Any questions?
Is there a reason I see the hours between 9 p.m. and 7 a.m. and I'm just thinking of, there's a lot of high school activities that go past 9 o'clock. Is there a reason that can't be bumped up? I'm thinking basketball games and...
I think the board wants to stretch those on either end. That's probably reasonable. Staff recommended between 9 and 7, but if you want to modify that, the board has that ability in their
And I'm
action.
even thinking earlier in the morning. I mean, students get there, teachers may get there. I'm just thinking of a welcome to North message or thank you for coming to the game or, something they may want to post for visitors.
Well, and it's not even in a residential area, it's
Right,
so you're not going to
across
be
from
disturbing
a
any
swimming
residents.
pool.
That's a good thought.
Yeah.
Brooke?
But why is the sign on Holcomb? I mean, the Holcomb is going to be accessed really only by the students and the visitors. I mean, why isn't it on 2nd or 6th? That's one question. The other question is, we've turned down several churches for electronic signs. Why are we allowing the schools to do it?
The difference would be this is not a residential district. That might be a difference in terms of that second question. The first question is this is self-selected in terms of their location. We didn't propose it.
Well, I don't see how it serves the interests of the public. You're only going to turn on Holcomb unless you're going to North. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I don't get it.
Yeah, well, that's a question for the appellant. What I do know is that they're doing a number of improvements to their parking areas around the building, and they're modifying those, and perhaps one of the things is they're orienting their primary entrance to this area or something, where they know most traffic is going to pass through.
Is the appellant here?
I believe so, yes.
We can ask him. No, you got anything?
No, if the appellant's going to speak, I'm fine.
Okay,
Fine.
good. Any other questions for staff? Thanks, Eric. Applicant or representative of the applicant?
Doug Odie, representing the Des Moines Public Schools, 1917 Dean Avenue, Des Moines. North High School and the district are just completing a little in excess of $9 million renovation of North High School, which includes a new administrative addition to the south side of the school, Those are just finalizing interior renovations at this time for the school year. We are currently under bid and in design for 2 phases to completely resurface, tear out and resurface the parking lots on the south side of the building that face Holcomb. With the new look of the building and the entry, the redone parking lots, the desire from the school and the district is to further enhance the appearance in north, to remove the old sign that sits up closer to the entry of the building and pull it out with an electronic message board sign closer to Holcomb. This is indeed the front door of North High School. There are 2 major streets, 6th and 2nd, that border north on the east and west sides. Answer your question, Brooke, is that if a sign was put on 6th, we're not addressing 2nd Avenue traffic and vice versa, and really don't have the desire to spend the money to put 2 signs in. So it is indeed the location, and the message board will be 2-sided and will be facing both 2nd Avenue and 6th Avenue. So I think people coming in north will certainly recognize the school from its physical structure sitting there and then be able to see the sign. So I think that's why the location was chosen to be 2-sided, perpendicular to Holcomb, so it could be read from both the east and west sides as people approach the property.
I heard Cindy's comment. Do you have any?
I would agree with Cindy that if we could work with staff to maybe extend those hours one way or another might be good. I think 6 to 10 or something like that might be more appropriate if we could discuss with staff and come up with different hours that would be acceptable to the city and perhaps better for the school would be great.
Brooke?
Are you going to put a new electronic sign at Roosevelt?
No.
Would this open it up to many electronic signs all over the city at
the
school?
district's position has been that signage is a school issue, and schools will initiate and fund the signage that they ask for. So this is being funded by North as an initiative by North, something that they want to accomplish. Roosevelt, I think, put their sign along Polk Boulevard out by the street with brick and limestone and so forth. So the signage items on exterior signage, whether they're static signs like Roosevelt or message board desires, are initiated and promoted by each individual school and then supported by central facility staff as they desire.
And the electronic portion is needed because?
I think they want to be able to provide messages to the students and to visitors and so forth. So.
All right.
No?
I don't have any comments. Fine. There are no
Thank you.
questions.
You bet.
Anybody else here to speak in support? Is anybody here to speak in opposition? Any last questions for staff? Eric, if we put in stipulation to change the times, would that be something that you guys could work with public?
I don't think we need to work with it. I think you can just amend you can amend your action and set the hours that you want.
We can just delete 5
Well,
and hope that the school board in North High School has enough sense to turn off the sign. You know.
Yeah, come on.
I think
that's what I want.
I think the intent would be that the message board portion would maybe be restricted to hours, but that the north sign will be individually controlled, and maybe the north sign would perhaps stay lit if that was permissible, but the message board would be shut down at, say, 10 o'clock or whatever is agreed upon. So,
Okay.
I think, as I understand the design, they're individually controlled.
All right.
All right. Mr. Chair.
Yes, no.
I appreciate the staff's consistency in wanting to put their following conditions out there with the limitations on the hours. But, as Brooke referenced, where this is going to be located, it's on Holcomb. I drive down 2nd and 6th all the time. I never drive down Holcomb. I wouldn't think you would unless you're going to or from the school. I'm not worried about what hours that sign is lit or not because it's in an industrial, institutional type area. I don't think it's going to bother anybody. I think it'd be neat to see, hey kids, if you're reading this after midnight, nothing good happens after midnight. Put that on their sign. I could care less when it is not lit. I think we should leave that up to the school. As Tom alluded to, I'd say let's just ditch number 5. let them manage their sign, figure out how much electricity they want to put into the thing.
You'll get no opposition from me, but I do have to put one thing. We're all done with staff. We'll close the public portion.
Oh, I'm sorry, I jumped the gun.
I like the way your enthusiasm comes out there, though. That's good. We'll close the public portion and go to board decision. Yes, Cindy.
Well, just a comment, although I understand where you're coming from, but if other schools step up and want electronic signs and they're in neighborhood districts
Yeah.
or residential districts, are they going to say, well, you didn't make North turn theirs off and you allowed for this, so should we specify?
That's why it's called a variance, and all the flap we had here about the signs on Grand were because there were houses around it. So if it was, again, I think that's the purpose of us here, is to look at the setting, the situation, is this going to bother an adjoining neighbor, land use, undue noise, light, whatever, I just don't see how this is going to bother anybody.
Right.
And I'm kind of the ilk that I'm not sure who's going to read it, except for, if it's for students, I get it. But if I'm a member of the community and I'd like to know when the holiday concert is, if it was on 2nd or 6th, I might be more in tune to come to your events. But if that's where you want to put it, I don't have a problem with it.
Depending on how the outcome is, when we prepare the order, we can give the rationale as to why no limitation was
Yeah.
made for hours of operation.
That would be helpful.
So, yes, Brooke.
I'm against this, and I'm going to tell you why. There's 50-some schools in the city, and I don't think it's a good idea to have electronic signs in residential areas, and we've been pretty specific with the churches. I frankly don't get the need for the electronic sign. Most schools communicate pretty well with the students and the public, and I'm going to vote against it.
Well, being a North High alum, did you go to North or were you East?
I could have gone to either that or Tech, but I went to Dallas.
Oh, okay. Okay, never mind. Well, being the North alum in here.
Nice try.
I do want to support this, and I would even go so far as to make a motion that we approve the variance. I think that the sign should be on Holcomb because I know that when grandparents and parents and people come to the schools, they're kind of looking for, well, where's the entrance? And we kind of look at monument signs and then just know that there's probably an entrance close to that monument sign. So I think it should be. It's always been on Holcomb. I think it should continue to be on Holcomb. Normally I'm against lit message boards also, but this is an M1 district. It's not residential. There are no residential homes around, so I think it would be an enhancement that would be good. It's just something else to make North High stand out and to be proud of. So I would like to do that. I would also like to put in there that they can keep it lit to do the North High. The electronic message board component, I can go either way. If nobody wants it, I'm fine to let them have it either way, but I would be glad to put in there that the electronic message board component not be lit between 10 p.m. and 6 a.m., but it doesn't matter to me if that's in there.
Well, or would you just say strike number 5 altogether?
Then if that said, I would make a motion that we approve the variance and delete item number 5 of the staff recommendations.
Okay.
I'd second that.
Jeff?
I just want to make a comment too. I think we all know I don't really like these kind of signs. I've kind of gone back and forth, and what I ultimately thought about was Lincoln and Roosevelt look like almost the same school. Lincoln has a lighted sign. Roosevelt has a nice traditional sign. Roosevelt looks a million times better, and one of the reasons is the sign. And I don't really see the need for this when the only people that are going to see it are the people on that street. So the lighting isn't going to attract me from 2nd or 6th to see it. So what's the point of having it be lit? I don't think there's any special reason why they need it in this case. So I'm also going to vote against it.
Okay. Any other comments? Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, raise your hand, say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries 5-2. Item 9, we got 2 things to consider here. We got an appeal with the zoning enforcement officer's determination as Part A. Part B is a request for variance at 1016 University.
All right. Item number 9, as Bill mentioned, has two parts. The first is an appeal of a zoning violation letter issued a couple months ago, and copies of everything have been provided in a pretty sizable packet in front of all of your chairs. So I'm just going to go through this quickly. The subject property is on the south side of University, the corner of 10th Street. It contains a one-story commercial building with 3 retail bays in it. Here's a closer look at the site. The property line is actually right here, so the only property we're looking at today is this area here. There's 3 bays. I believe there's a Mort's Barber Shop. There's another beauty salon in the middle, and then there's a clothing store on the east end of the building. There are 4 parking spaces along the east side of the building that are all dedicated to the businesses on the main level. So the main level, they are actually deficient by 2 or 3 off-street parking stalls, but that was granted by a variance from, I believe, 1967. So what's happened is in the last 10 years or so, a restaurant has opened up in the basement of this building. And back in 1998, it was issued a temporary certificate of occupancy. I've put copies of the temporary ones in your packet. I was allowed to operate temporarily while they worked out their parking solution. However, the parking issue was never adequately addressed. So when the temporary certificate of occupancy expired in 2001, I believe, the city just assumed it was had been vacated. So fast forward a few years, in 2008 or 9, it was discovered that the restaurant was still operating. At that time, they had applied to the Board of Adjustment to get a variance to the off-street parking, but right before the public hearing, they said they had came to a lease agreement with this Anawim property to the south to lease some spaces, and so that lease would have satisfied the parking shortage. So they actually withdrew their appeal at that time. However, that lease never did materialize, so it's back here before you today. Again, in your packet, there's a copy of the zoning citation letter. They were cited for 6 things. The first being they did not have a permanent certificate of occupancy for use of the restaurant. The second 2 deal with the parking situation. They both say that they don't have adequate parking for the restaurant to be operated. The fourth was for failure to enclose a trash container on the property. Fifth was for an obsolete sign on the pole sign. They still had signage for J&K Nail and Spa, even though it had been closed and out of business for some time. And the last one is they did not get a sign permit for the window sign for Mort's Barber Shop. And I believe these last 2 issues, they have been working with the zoning inspector to get the necessary sign permits. So I don't believe they're going to be appealing those. Here's copies of the certificate of occupancies. This first one was from 1999. It expired June 1st of 1999. Then their second temporary was issued in December of 2001, and it expired June 28 of 2002. All right, I'm going to go through the site photos. Hopefully this shows up on your monitors better than on the screen. But there's the one-story commercial building here with 4 off-street parking spaces to the east. Here's a picture of the sign. Again, this is what they were cited for, having this J&R Nail and Spa, even though that business is no longer there. Here's a picture of the sign that was installed without a sign permit. This is another photo, and this is I believe they were also cited for not having the sign permit for Mort's Barber Shop sign in the window. And this is a picture of the dumpster that's on their property that needs to be enclosed. We need needs gates across. It is screened on 3 of the 4 sides. And then this photo here shows another dumpster pushed up against the building that needs to be completely enclosed. And these are some photos that the zoning inspector took inside the restaurant in the basement. So you can see that the basement has been converted to a restaurant/bar. And at this time, they're only asking for a restaurant. They're saying that more than 50% of their sales would come from food. So they're not intending to be a tavern at this time, just a restaurant. And then another issue that we noted was a canopy on the west side of the building has been constructed right up to the property line. And we've never, we don't have any record of that canopy getting a building permit or getting the relief from the 25-foot front yard setback. So a variance for that is also listed in Part B. Then on the consent map, we just had one card come back in opposition. So our staff's recommendation is to, in Part 1, is to uphold the zoning enforcement officer's determination. And again, that's just to uphold the letter of zoning violation that was issued on June 6th of 2011. And then on Part B, in Part B, the board would consider if the board upholds the zoning officer in Part A. So Part B would also allow them to keep the restaurant. To do so, they would need these 3 appeals. The first is a variance of 15 off-street parking spaces less than the required 15 off-street parking spaces, and that's calculated as 1 space per 150 square feet for the 2,160 square foot restaurant. They've also asked for a variance of 25 feet less than the required 25-foot setback necessary to retain that canopy, as I just pointed out. And then the third would be a variance of the requirement that any refuse collection container or dumpster that is visible from adjoining streets or residential zoning districts shall be enclosed on all sides. Staff has recommended denial of the second variance, and that's for the canopy, and then also the variance of the screening provision for dumpsters. We feel that that canopy should be removed and that they should completely enclose the dumpsters. As far as the variance to off-street parking, we have recommended an amended appeal. We feel that there's an opportunity, and the applicant has said there is an opportunity as well, to lease 10 parking spaces from Anawim Housing to the south. This is a apartment building with 4 off-street parking spaces. So for a 4-plex, they're required to have 6 off-street parking spaces. However, this parking lot here has, I believe, 19 off-street parking spaces. So they have a surplus of about 13, give or take. So there is the opportunity to lease some of these parking spaces to dedicate to the restaurant use in the basement of that building. So, however, our recommendation for the amended appeal does come with several conditions. Let's go through this quickly. One is that any use of the basement for a restaurant shall be subject to provision of a lease for at least 10 off-street parking spaces. The lease shall A, state the number of parking spaces being leased, and B, be submitted to the zoning enforcement officer by June 30th of each year to verify that the lease is still in effect. 2, any restaurant that serves wine, beer, and or liquor shall be in accordance with the proper liquor license obtained through the city clerk and council. 3, any restaurant operating on the premise shall derive at least 50% of its sales from food. And again, that really goes without saying, but we put that in there just to make it clear. 4, that the canopy along the west side of the building shall be removed. 5, any trash containers or dumpsters on the premises shall be completely screened by an enclosure which shall have steel gates. 6, any renovation of the structure shall conform with all building codes and have all necessary permits by the Permit Development Center. And 7, if the zoning enforcement officer determines that the operation of the restaurant is a nuisance, they may apply to bring it back to the board for reconsideration. No, it's a complicated one, so any questions?
Yeah. They plan to continue the operation of a restaurant in the basement of the premises.
Correct.
Has anybody been to these premises besides your inspector?
We did have somebody that reviews building plans, and they went down into the building. I believe he's the one that took the pictures. He said that the restaurant doesn't meet the current building code requirements, but it did meet the building code requirements for when it went in there. So the building department has determined that there are some grandfather rights to building code.
But didn't that lapse in 2002?
The building code grandfather rights are different than zoning code, where they don't lapse once you have them.
As I recall that building, isn't there only one way into the basement?
Yeah, and it's through the stairs, I believe.
Yes,
right
and isn't it a fairly narrow stairway, like 30 inches wide?
I have never been in there. I don't know.
And isn't it a fairly steep stairway? My question to you and to the people that are looking at this as a future use is, how does a handicapped person get down there? And if there's a fire, how does anybody get out?
I can't speak to the building code. I do know that they've gone in and reviewed it when it came in previously. It had some violations. They will have to bring those up to code or whatever the building department.
But there's no means of escape from that place except a single stairway to the
I
basement.
believe that may be true.
And that basement is like 12 feet below ground level. So it's impossible to get out. If that stairway's blocked, nobody can get out.
I can't speak to the building code or the decisions that they've made on that.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
So, Ann, I know who you are, but just for the record.
Oh, I'm sorry. Suzanne Donovan, Zoning Enforcement Officer.
Thank you. Any other questions for staff? Thanks, Bert. Applicant or representative of the applicant?
Legal aid started out there.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, thanks. My name is Chris Talcott from the Davis Brown Law Firm, 215 10th Street, Suite 1300, Des Moines 50309. I'm here to speak on behalf of the applicant, property owner Frank Weinstein, and also, for lack of a better term, the kind of property managers, which is Contract Exchange Corporation. And I'll just kind of explain the nature of our appeals first, and then kind of give a little background on this property receipt, but you know why we're here. As Bert went through, we had the determination of zoning violations, and then we're going to ask for a variance or exception on the parking issues. And now I'll just mention address those zoning violations first. Our clients, Frank Weinstein and Contract Exchange, are really real estate investors, not necessarily managers. They came in about 2007, I think. It's kind of a financing transaction. The Contract Exchange acquired title, immediately sold it back on contract to the prior owner. That contract got assigned to Frank Weinstein, and in, I think, April of this year, they defaulted on the contract, forfeited it out, and took control of the property at that point. So they kind of inherited those issues, but they've been trying to work on them. As Bert mentioned, I think we're going to drop most of those appeals of the violations. Tony Schubert, the president of Contract Exchange, has been working with the tenants. We had a meeting with city staff in July to talk about these issues and what needed to be done to address them. And I know on the trash cans, I know they have gates up on at least one of them, and they're willing to work on those. The sign issues, the obsolete sign's been removed, and they're working with the tenants to, I think all they need to do is pull permits on those other sides, or other signs. And then they're willing to remove that canopy also. So we're really just concerned about parking. So this is a variance or an exception for parking. As you can see, the building goes right up to the property line. So other than those 4 existing spaces, there's no way this building can provide additional parking on the land that the applicant owns. And I believe it's qualifies for a variance. I don't think there's any zoning use available under the zoning code that isn't going to require some parking. They can't possibly provide any additional parking on the property as it is. We think it's it's on University Avenue, a busy street, but we think these businesses really cater to local residents for the most part. They're pretty pedestrian oriented. So we don't think parking is a very large concern in this area. Residential area, I think on both sides of the university there. So there's a lot of people within walking distance that would frequent these businesses on foot rather than driving by car and having to park. And I don't think having limited parking is going to alter the essential character of the neighborhood around us. And as kind of the history that staff has provided you has shown, this has kind of been the case for a while, I think. So that kind of goes the variance. Kind of the same issues when we ask for the exception. The variance, the extreme, we might ask for not requiring any additional parking. The variance or the exception would require can only qualify if there's a 50%. There's no greater deviation from the required number of spaces than 50%. When we kind of looked at this appeal and when we kind of talked to city staff initially, we're kind of looking at the property as a whole. So looking at those 4 spaces that we already have, and then what could we get with a lease from the neighboring property. We talked about up to 21 spaces would be required. Applicants come up with a site plan where they can get a total of 11 spaces. So it would be 7 along that southern edge, and that would include a handicap parking as necessary, which I'm not sure is there currently. So whether you look at it from a variance perspective or an exception perspective, we think there's hardship shown due to just the nature of the property. They're landlocked there. Kind of a pedestrian-oriented businesses and in enough of a pedestrian-oriented neighborhood, despite the fact that it's on University Avenue there. So we would ask that the board consider, again, whether we call it term it a variance or an exception, if consider allowing pursuant to the site plan we've drawn up, providing for 11 total spaces on the property. So this would be the existing parking right here, 4 spaces there, and then proposing to provide 7 spaces on the land immediately south, including the handicap parking there with the necessary loading area there. That also involves what I understand is required maybe by the site plan review process, a maneuvering space in this area here. And the way we do that is through a lease with the property owner to the south, which is Anawim Housing. I think the staff report shows that they have more parking than necessary. This is the parking that's immediately joining ours. So we have a lease that's actually signed, and that would allow us flexibility to meet the zoning requirements. And we just had this signed the other day, so this hadn't been provided before, but you see we have an agreement to provide that space, but we don't think anything more is necessary than these additional 7 spots with the maneuvering area, more than enough, we think, to accommodate the businesses that are there. So we'd ask the board to consider granting the right to meet the zoning requirements through a lease that will allow us to provide the parking as we've kind of shown here. And we have Tony Schubert and Tony Schubert Jr. From Contract Exchange Corporation. who can also help answer any questions board members might have. Thank you.
Let me ask just one quick one. It sounds to me that you're not disputing the zoning officer's determination, so you're not trying to appeal that any longer, or you're just going for the variances?
Correct. Yes, we kind of appealed those, buy ourselves time to work on them.
Okay.
So we'll accept the determinations on that and focus on the parking issues.
Okay.
Mr. Talcott, have you been shown or able to read the objection to your application from the neighbor across the street?
I had not seen that. I didn't think I saw that on the report.
I think it's
Red
down
card.
here.
I think Jeff's got it.
Why don't you take a minute and read that? And the reason I'm doing this is because everybody on the board has read that.
You handed it to. Oh, yeah, sure.
Yeah, we'll get it around.
You are familiar with the Corinthian Apartments across the street?
Yes.
It's a housing for the elderly project, as I recall.
Okay.
Okay. And it's run by the Corinthian Baptist Church, as I recall. But basically, they don't like the idea. And their objection is that this would be an inappropriate to grant the any relief here because it would increase traffic. It is an inappropriate business for the neighborhood, a business that would serve liquor, and they're just not interested. Has anybody on behalf of the appellant chatted with any of the neighbors or talked to any neighborhood association about this proposal?
Yeah, I don't know. I can give Tony Sherbert a chance to speak to that.
Hi, I'm Tony Schubert, President of Contract Exchange Corporation, and we help.
I need an address, too.
Okay, 222 3rd Street Southeast, Cedar Rapids, Iowa, 52401. I haven't seen this objection from. We didn't know it existed until just now, so I haven't had a chance to speak with any about that.
Okay.
Mr. Chair.
No.
While both of them are here, depending on who wants to answer this, to your knowledge, is there parking available on the street to the west of the building?
I believe there is on the street. I think there's street parking, but I'm not sure.
Are you generally familiar with day-to-day operations between your two tenants there?
No, I'm not there day to day.
Okay.
I really don't know. I guess I don't think their one objection about increasing traffic is valid because there's not going to be any change in the use that's been there for 10 years. So it's the same traffic patterns. There rarely cars parked.
Right.
They park behind that building anyway for the last 10 years, as far as I can see, people that want to park there. But it's mainly minority businesses. A lot of people in the neighborhood walk to the barber shop or a hair salon and that type of thing. And as far as the basement operation, the way I understand it from the people that are in the building, they're really only open Friday and Saturday nights. They're not open any earlier than 7 p.m. And that might be when the most traffic arrives. I don't know, but I spoke with Anawim, the guy who runs Anawim and has had that building for a long time. They previously had this lease arrangement agreement that expired due to lack of payments by one of the tenants, but our new lease agreement is with the owner, so he would make sure that that lease agreement and the things the city wants as far as annual proof of that lease would be taken care of.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
Any other questions for the applicant? Thank you.
If I can just add
Sure can.
to some of the question about the disturbances, I looked in the staff report. It had a list of complaints from the property over the past, I think, 12 months. And from what I could tell, it didn't look like any major. I think there were 2 disputes, and one or both of them, it looked like was from the previous owner taking stuff out. I don't know if his wife was a tenant or something. So that, resulted from the change in ownership, that guy being forfeited out. So it didn't look to me like there's any evidence of, disturbances, at least that have been shown up in the reports.
Okay.
Bill?
At least just from your opinion here, now, if you've got a potential lease with Anawim and you've drafted that up, are you saying that it sounds like they will sign that or they're agreeable to it?
They have signed it.
They have signed it.
They have signed it. And it would cover, what we've proposed here. We've built in some flexibility.
Okay.
Knowing the board won't necessarily approve this exact thing, but they have signed it.
And as Tony referenced, people have probably parked there anyway over the years. Has Anawim ever had a problem with that? Or to your knowledge, were they upset about people parking in their lot before?
Yeah, all I know is that they had, from the zoning history documents we got, it looked like they had a complete willingness to sign it back in whatever it was, 2005, and they had no objections to signing a lease this time.
In the drawing you have, while it would be subject to city's review, you generally think that although you're only proposing 7 and the city wants, I think, at least 10, that, the parking spots, the widths and the dimensions you have would create at least 7 spots?
Correct. That's what we drew up after our folks had gone in there.
I think your handicap spot, I'm not sure with the dimensions there, but that might have to be adjusted a little.
Right. I just know we drew this up after our meeting with city staff going into the property.
All right. Thank you.
Just to address your one question, Mr. Pins, I'm sorry, what was it? Anawim had no comment to me whatsoever. I was in negotiations with Mr. Russ Fraser, who is the president of Anawim, about this space. He never once mentioned about any past problems or any other things. We just talked about maintenance and snow removal and things like that, but nothing was brought up.
Okay.
Thank you.
You bet. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else here to speak in support? Is anybody here to speak in opposition? Any last questions for staff? Hearing none, we'll close the public portion and go to board decision. Tell you what, let's do this. Part A should be pretty easy because they're not contesting any of it. So I'll entertain a motion to accept Part A of the appeal.
Yeah, I move that the board uphold the determination of the zoning enforcement officer as to Part A.
I'll second that motion.
Been moved and seconded. All those in favor, raise your hand and say aye. Motion carries 7-0. Now on to Part B. It sounds like they're going to take down the canopy. The sign's been taken care of. I think the issue that we have to talk about is the number of parking spaces. So thoughts?
Well, there's a few things here that don't quite add up for me, but they're not necessarily related to the parking spaces themselves. I don't know too many restaurants that only operate Friday and Saturday night after 7 o'clock. But that said, that's a positive that if we got a barber beauty shop, I'm guessing later in the evening they're not open. So if we got 4 spots there at the barber beauty shop, and they're just proposing 7, I think city staff wants 10, that'd be 11. There was probably some parking on the street there, I'm guessing. I'd be willing to negotiate on the parking thing with them, but there's other concerns in the periphery here, but I don't know that that is under our purview right now about stairs and handicapped access and grease traps. That'd be another one I would think of. But again, that's probably not for us to decide.
Thank goodness we have other city departments that take that into consideration.
If it either is or isn't okay with them, they'll have to deal with them.
Okay.
I'm not going to support it.
Okay.
I just don't feel that it's appropriate, so I won't.
Well, I'm not going to support it because I don't think that the applicant has talked about the fact that the land in question can't yield a reasonable return. That is to say, he's got spaces for 2 or 3 businesses up on top. The land is assessed at $100,000. I understand that both Contract Exchange and Mr. Weinstein probably don't want to have 1 iota of space that's not leased. I can understand that. But I'm not going to support this application because, number one, I feel they failed to show that the land cannot yield a reasonable return. And secondly, I don't think that there is any unique circumstances here that would entitle the owner applicant to the relief requested. He wants to lease the basement for commercial enterprise. That's fine with me. If he thinks that if the city other departments think that they have rights that are grandfathered in, that's fine with me. But I'm not going to support a variance for this property because I don't think it's justified.
Okay. Other thoughts? Yeah.
Should be closed.
Yeah, that's good. I think so. So Mike and I were on the same page here. I was going to say, what about an exception level relief? Are you game for that? How about you, Linda?
I'm not going to support it.
At all? Okay.
I'm going to vote no.
Okay.
I'm not going to support it.
Even on an exception level?
Even on an exception level.
Okay. I'm kind of leaning with Mel. It's been a business for 10 years. Good arguments by Linda and Tom, but we've had these come before us before, and you can almost put a death warrant on it if you shut them down. Because if there were other options available, I would be more than willing to follow and not grant them the relief. But I don't see any other options. It'll be vacant.
We've also had cases where we have a parking problem, but nothing is proposed to solve that. And here it appears that they have an agreement in place or ready to go with a happy neighboring owner, which usually is rare that people can work that out. I've got some other concerns about the operation, but that's not under our purview, and I don't want to cloud that with this. I do appreciate what Tom is saying.
There could be other businesses in there, though. Somebody could have an office. I just don't think it's good for the neighborhood. I think it's going to promote crowding on the streets. It's just going to, there's not enough parking.
Is there a motion, Mr. Chairman?
No, Brooke, unless you want to jump in feet first.
I have a question for staff. Can I ask them a question?
Sure can, yeah. It's a tough one here.
So it says in 1986 there was a basement, but there wasn't anything in it.
Correct. That's what the staff report.
Was nothing in it until 2009 then?
2009 or 1999?
Well, your thing skips till 2009. So did something at some point after that time, something started to be in there?
I guess sometime after 1986, like a gentleman's club or some after-hours club had went into there, and I believe that's how they have their grandfather rights for the building code issues, was because the building code classifies a gentleman's club as the same occupancy, which is like assembly, as a restaurant. And so since it has once been legitimately used for an assembly, I believe the building code grandfather rights carried forward with the restaurant that,
okay.
And I believe the restaurant first appeared like in 1999.
But when that happened, though, they should have came back and asked for parking then. Did they, when they put that in the basement, I assumed it wasn't assessing the basement? Like there wasn't any assessed value for that because it was unfinished? Is that now in the value of the property? Do we know?
I don't know, but
Thanks,
because you have Linda.
She's
good.
Yeah, it's in here. It's in this.
Amanda, zoning enforcement officer. I'm not sure that we have a clear idea of how that business went in there, when it went in. It's never been permitted. Building has gone in and looked at it. There's still some problems with it. There may be egress problems. We're not here to really discuss the building portion of it. but it's never had legitimate parking, and they've come and gone in and out, and we've been chasing them for years. It's kind of been a problem property.
And the appellant hasn't supplied any evidence from the Iowa Department of Revenue that there's always been a sales tax permit here?
We don't have any idea what the operation is in the basement. We don't know if it's after hours only or bring your own after 7, or we're not exactly sure what's going on down there.
Well,
I don't know if that clarifies, but it is a problem for all of us to figure out exactly what it is or how it went in there.
well, I think one way or another, decision out of here, we're going to get a clearer picture.
Yes, you will. So will we. Thank you.
All right. Why don't we do this, so we know where everybody's sitting anyway? I'll put the motion out there. I'll put a motion that we grant them a variance of, so they can have 11 parking spots, so that's a variance of what? How many do they want, 25? So 14, is that right, Bert? No? 15, so...
They need 15 total for the restaurant. So
Okay.
you're saying that they would provide a total of 7?
11.
So 11?
Yeah, that's what they're
Okay.
requesting. That's in this drawing that they're showing right now.
Oh, I think their drawing shows these 7 and these 4.
Right.
These 4 have to be dedicated to the businesses on the main level, so they can't be included
At all?
for the restaurant.
Okay.
But Bill, couldn't we, I'm sorry to interrupt, but if you look at number 1, if I'm with your train of thought here, lease demonstrating legal use of at least 7 off-street parking spaces from the property to the south. If you just went with that, does
Yeah.
that accomplish what I
Yeah.
think you're getting to?
Yes.
Without having to change other numbers?
There we go. Okay. So that'll be my motion.
I'll go ahead and second that.
But
We'll see where
then it's a variance, not an exception, isn't it?
Yeah.
So you're moving a variance on this property, isn't that correct?
That'd be,
All right?
Just for the parking.
just for the parking. Because they've already agreed that they're going to,
And the other staff recommendations.
yeah, because they're going to have to do the waste containers and the
Canopy.
canopies coming down.
Yeah.
Okay. Any further discussion? All those in favor, raise your hand and say aye.
Try it.
Those opposed? Motion carries 4-3. Wow,
Closest vote ever.
that is. I'm surprised. All right, you still got a lot of work ahead of you, and like Mr. Clark pointed out, one of the best things you can do is go across the street and talk to the neighbor that put the card out, because they're either going to help you or be the biggest thorn in your side, and it's best to have them on your side. Okay.
And we might stop in to see what your menu is on a Friday night, too. We've been known to do that.
That's right. And come Christmas time, we'll be doing it again.
Yeah, we're usually pleasantly surprised.
Item 10 is a conditional use permit and exception at 1101 East Army Post Road. And are you doing this one, Eric? Are you doing this one, Eric, or is Bert?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
This has been before us before.
This was you gave relief in 2009 for conditional use. If you look in the additional information, it was subject to, and the numbering got messed up somehow. It was 4. There's 2 number 3s in the staff report, but there's 4 items that it was subject to. At that time, I think the major concern was to get amendment to the plan for Southridge Mall, C4 plan, and then also there was concern about the vision clearance of the enclosure on that interior drive, where by zoning normally we don't regulate vision clearance on internal drive systems.
Right.
There was a concern expressed at that time about the traffic moving between Hy-Vee and this location being fast enough that somebody leaving the site, and at that time they were actually proposing a one-way circulation where they would all be exiting to the south. I think now it's set up, they can probably go 2-way there based on their site layout. So at that time, there was that condition, these conditions placed on it. In the meantime, they've worked towards that. You've seen at the time that it came before you before, it was an auto parts store empty. And then they have since made modifications, and I'll let them explain why the timing didn't work for them to get everything completed within the 2-year time frame for the relief. I think they had some other struggles with the owner and so forth, but I'll let them explain those limitations. We're looking at it the same. They've provided, a layout for us. I'm going to give you a copy, or I'll show you the layout. I've got photos here too. You can see that the improvements are made to the building. Maybe I better show you the aerial so you know exactly where this is within the site. This is the building that we're dealing with. It was the Advanced Auto. This is Hy-Vee at Southridge. This is Target.
Where's the rodeo? I just want to...
The rodeo would have been about a quarter mile south of there on the other side of the mall.
I know.
This is right up against Army Post. The site to the east was the former Taco Time drive-through restaurant. Oh, my stuff's falling off here, sorry. And then this shows you the whole mall to get a sense. This has been removed from the mall C4 area and rezoned to commercial. This is the Hy-Vee convenience store, which was also amended. So they did follow through with getting the amendment to the C4, which included not just changing this from a retail to a tavern nightclub use, but also brought up to date some other things that were happening, including adding the farmers market and some other things. So Macerich did follow through and get that amended. So that's actually not a recommended condition any longer because they've approved that. I'm going to have to lay this out and then I'll zoom out for you. Bert's going to be nice enough. Thank you, Bert. And they've provided us a site plan. Again, you'll see the enclosure here, which is really takes up almost all the space between the building and the internal drive, and then the egress is going to be here. There's also some loading, like a lift or loading area right here. So there's some concern about this obstruction because traffic will come here to get to the exit. And it actually, my observation being out there for about a half an hour was that it does move significantly through here.
Yes, it does.
Whether they should be going that fast or not, but they do. And so it is a concern. They're going to be promoting motorcycle parking up against the building here and between the parking stalls and the building on the north side. Now I'll get to the photos to kind of give you a better sense, because some of this is hard to see if you just drove by.
Where is their outdoor space, the space that they'll have the smokers at?
I'm not sure they're proposing any separate outdoor service area at this time, and I'll let them speak to that. That's not included in their request, so that doesn't stop the smoker from leaving the premises and smoking on the way to their vehicle, or so there may still be people standing somewhere on the site smoking, but there won't be an area that's a service area being proposed. I'll start out with if you look to the west, this is the interior service drive. Hy-Vee would be just to the left. That's the enclosure on the west side of the building. This gives you a sense if you're coming out that drive onto the interior service area, service road. So this is an obstruction, and so I think this was the concern that was brought up last go around and why the condition was made. We're recommending the same thing. At the last one, I think it was 25 feet, but given the location of this bollard system and the loading entrance here, I think 15 feet should be sufficient to get the proper. That would be the same as our vision clearance if this was a public street.
Okay.
So a private drive coming onto a public street would need a 15 by 15. So if they make sure this is shifted 15 feet east of the west wall of the building, that should be sufficient. And you'll notice too that there's a little bit of slope to it coming off the back of the building. They've got adequate area to shift that over, really, and make that work. I know there'll be a little bit of expense to doing that, but I think it'll pay a dividend of safety in the long run. This shows you the west side of the building. So there's an entrance here. There'll be motorcycle parking designated against the building here. And then the drive entrance, coming off that entrance, this drive will come in. And then that shows you the western parking area. Then again, up against the building, there'll be motorcycle parking, but then vehicles will park up to this curb. So there'll be a kind of a dual purpose area where there'll be motorcycles and vehicles parked according to their site plan. And backing all the way up again to see the whole, so you can see that there's been a lot of work done in that 2-year time frame. So they've been generally making progress. The 2 years wasn't apparently sufficient for them. Staff's recommending essentially the same conditions, approval. Now there would be no condition though to amend the C4 plan as it's been done, but we are also asking to put those provisions in that we do with taverns and nightclubs now, so that if there's ever a problem generated by this, it can be brought back more easily. Also, we want to make sure there's proper litter control and lighting for the site as well, and we want to ensure that they're having to comply with that. So we're essentially recommending the same thing with a few additional clarifications on our requirements for conditional uses.
Eric, I just got a couple questions. One, I noticed in here, they've been working on it for 2 years, and granted, it probably took longer than normal. It says here that it has to be in use in that 2 years. We not take into account unforeseen delays for building?
In terms of whether they've executed that relief?
Yeah.
They didn't get up into operation of a business selling liquor, so they were never granted a liquor license in that 2-year time frame. Even though, if this would have been relief for like a setback on the for an addition on the building, and they got a building permit and started constructing it, then I would say that came into play here. But in this case, the actual relief you're giving them is the use, and they never began conducting the use. So even though they did...
So I guess that's what I was asking.
Yeah.
Even
though they took steps to modify the building, that wasn't really initiating the relief that they were granted.
Okay.
They could have not had to make any modifications, and if they never, opened for business, they weren't business selling liquor. So. And
the consent map, if you could show that a second.
Yeah. We did get one card, and I passed that.
This guy's pretty caustic. He was pretty upset being over there, and he was talking about people driving through his parking lot to get there.
Can I help with something here?
Yeah, this is another business.
Yeah,
so you know that would be.
He's the property owner where he used to lease a bar on his own property to others. Where La Hacienda currently is located, that used to be called like Coyotes or Coyote Wild. It was like a Bosnian bar.
It was Doc and Eddie's way back then.
Yeah. It would come and go. It came and went. There were problems, but the problems were on his own site.
Oh.
So
I was trying to figure out why people...
So
that makes sense.
Perhaps once bitten, twice shy. He's like, gee, if I had the problem on my place, maybe this will be there, and whether or not, because it's across the road, would be similar, hard to say. But he had a bar on his own property.
There is some, if you look, I'll give you the aerial. There is some unique circulation with the number of drives there, too, in terms of, because there's a median up to this point. I think sometimes if people don't make the turn at the right moment, then they might cut back through here to get out to this exit here, or even behind the Village Inn, out to this light area, because again, if they get to the point where they miss it and they can't make another left, or there's no internal circulation once you get past this entrance.
I just go down to Ivy Gas and make the right, 2 right turns and you're back in.
Yeah, or the other way would be to go through the
I do it all the time.
So
Thanks, Eric.
I can understand there might be some concerns about circulation, but Army Post is one of the busiest arterials in the city. And so those things happen regardless of these types of uses, I think.
Okay. Yep. Any other questions for staff?
Eric, I do have one question. On the dumpster blockage, and, we talked about 25 feet away from the corner of the building before. Now you're only saying 15.
I think that was made on the fly last time without any real
I guess
analysis.
You feel that bollard is there. That's okay. Clarification, though, it looks like that dumpster is pretty well enclosed now, just roughly. But it's very high. You only require that the dumpster be enclosed to whatever height is necessary to hide the dumpster, right?
That's the regulation.
So if it's a 5-foot tall dumpster, you only need a 5-foot tall fence. So maybe even when he moves it, it doesn't have to be super tall. And if somebody's far enough away, now you can start to perhaps see over the enclosure, you see headlights coming, et cetera. Because right now it's quite a stockade there, and you can't see around it.
Yeah,
can't see around it.
To be honest with you, I didn't get in behind it to see what they were screening.
I can't remember if it's a transformer dumpster, what's there now.
My understanding is that there's probably at least a dumpster behind there.
Yeah. Okay. All right. But it doesn't have to be a certain height, just tall enough to screen the size of the dumpster being used, correct?
Yeah, that's what the requirement would be.
All right. Thank you.
Any other
that's
questions? It's probably about a 6 or 7 foot screen right now.
Since I'm not as tall as you, it seems more daunting to me.
Any other questions for staff? Thanks, Eric. Applicant or representative of the applicant?
James F. Bordenaro, 1101 East Army Post Road. Destination Lounge.
Just here to try and get it back again, huh?
Yeah. We've had delays, through construction part, just making sure we go to A to C and follow it, and which we have been, and good standings with the City of Des Moines inspectors and so forth. And I did provide pictures to the staff of what the interior looks like and so forth. Had a couple delays and code issues and stuff like that involving our grease traps and sprinkler system. The code issues as far as strobe lights and fire is in the works right now, almost finished. Permar's provided all the security on that. So we're getting real close to wrapping it up. The exterior, I've provided my handicap paintings the last couple weeks, and if you do a drive-by, you'll see that they're all with the International 2014 code, which brings back the real handicap stalls, which are going to be enforced throughout the city to make sure that they're doing the proper painting and size of the wheelchairs. Big wheelchair now. You can't miss it. But other than that, I did want to clarify on that enclosure. For some reason, apparently, it might have not got to the city, but my architect was supposed to provide a print to the City of Des Moines, and he said he did. Apparently, I'll have to clarify that. Apparently, these guys haven't received the new plan for what I proposed on that trash enclosure was to barricade that entrance completely off. Reasoning why is because for safety reasons, this is all about safety for my patrons and the public as well, moving out of that area involving an alcohol establishment too on top of it doesn't help. But I feel for the safety of everyone to barricade that completely off would not hurt my business at all with the flow, but would create more safety for me and everybody, and that would be to do I propose blocking that off and doing just coming in the 2 ways on the east end of the building, and the arrows that come in, which I've painted already, and come in, and you'll have enough room to come around, and the arrows would be coming around. Let me show you right here. We would be coming around like this and going around, and it'd be a continuous area. Let me find out where I'm at here. Okay, we block this off. First of all, coming in this way on the left and going out on the left and coming in on the right is like, isn't that England? Like when you go to stop at a stop sign, you're going to be on the left. I don't like that idea at all. I mean, I don't understand how that got to be that point. It was all because of the enclosures, how we're going to try to circle them around. Well, block that off. Come in the right way. And you're coming in like this, and you follow that around, and you come around the medians like this and back out, and that would be the flow, because there's enough room in here for that to happen. I would suggest doing that versus trying to move this thing. That would give me more vision of my glass frontage, so if people do leave my place, I know they have to come back out. That one way is not going to stop people from leaving and coming in. They're going to pull it, they're going to go out, whether you say do not enter, this is one way, they're going to roll out anyway. And moving the trash enclosure is going to block the other end, because what am I going to do? Move it down 15, 20 feet, what about going out and then that exit? Okay. So what about the traffic going the other way? You might want to rethink it, and we might propose doing what I'm doing for the safety of all of us, is to block that one entrance off and just let them come in and out where there's plenty of vision, and I can have vision to know that they're leaving my parking lot. It is cambered. I've got 17 video cameras on the premise, so I'm all about safety. And that's all I can really, I
hope this won't delay you any longer.
No, actually, it's done. I mean, all I do is put the barricade, put a permanent barricade, not a chain, so, they can't go through it. But my signage and all my arrows are already basically kind of in place for that. I mean, it doesn't take much to paint them.
I've just got a couple questions. One, since you already had come this far, why didn't you put a patio application?
That's something else too that I need to ask, because on my application, I missed last month because we had some fees that we had to pay to get in. If you pull that out, on my original application, I put down there that I am here too to provide where I would like my smoking area on the east vestibule, which I would like to, I talked to Candace down at the city zoning too, who's taking care of my part in this, that we, there's a cement slab here, vestibule, you come out, smokers come out this way, people who enter and exit this way only, and provide a rail out there, and like kind of like downtown, where they have areas to come out, and that would be the spot. The wind blows that way, there won't be smoke in people's faces. It's not going to blow back in my building because we have the vestibule plus the other doors. Security-wise, it would work great, and I did propose that on the bottom of that sheet right there. So I don't know why it wasn't mentioned, but
I'll get to it.
Okay.
I have a feeling
I thought I'd just get that taken care of while we were in here.
Second question here.
Sure.
Mel and I and the rest of the board always want to know when you're going to be open for business.
Yeah.
Because we might be.
We've been waiting.
I know. It's coming, and we're working out all the agreements that Mesa Ridge Corporation has some things to fulfill for me to get done on their part, and we're working together at this point that I know of, and I am patiently waiting and biting my tongue and working, with them. We're doing a press release on it coming up real soon. I am, and it's going to be positive, and it's not an attack on anything, and I haven't on anybody, and Southridge has done a good job with me, working with their corporation, because, that's a big corporation, and Southridge has not always provided the opportunity for finances to keep their mall looking up, good. But they do a good job at what they can get by with for now.
Any other questions, Mel?
Just a real quick one, James. I appreciate you clarifying that, it's your general intent to close off that west entrance. But if we just left the provision in there and say, if the west entrance remains open, then you shall move the
Yes, that's
enclosure
correct.
15 feet.
Sure, you bet.
Because I'd be happy with if you don't, if you do close that off, then it could probably stay where it's at and probably won't
Right.
bother anybody.
Correct.
You could maybe saw off the top of it if you want.
It is a little,
Yeah.
it's
So,
looking,
yeah. But I'd leave that up to you.
okay, yep.
Any other questions for the applicant? Thank you. Anybody else here to speak in support? Anybody here to speak in opposition? We got some questions, Eric. So, what do we do about this patio?
The patio was not indicated for service, outdoor service.
Okay.
So they're welcome to use a patio. I mean, they show an area that's shown for a sidewalk area. They'll have to install the rail and show that on their plan, and they'll have to designate the area, amount of area. That was not advertised for this request.
So even if it's not a service area, but if there's still a construction related to it, do we have to approve anything then, or they just have to just show it on the plan?
If they want to provide an area outside of their building for people to stand outside, that's okay. What they can't do is bring out and sell alcohol out that. Otherwise, then they have to have a fenced-in enclosure. They have to designate that area on their application for their conditional use so that we know what's the area, what's the outdoor service area.
Can we have him clarify that then, if he does not intend to
The other
serve?
thing that kicks in with that outdoor service area is it changes building code occupancy counts for fixture counts and things like that. And so I'm guessing that this is something Candace looked at and said, Candace is a plan reviewer, just Candace Biddle, looked at it and, we allow you to, construct these kind of areas as long as you're not providing service.
Okay.
If there is an intention to do service, we should probably continue it and advertise that designated area, and then also get more detail as to how that's going to be enclosed and where the egresses are going to be and that kind of thing.
That might not be a bad idea, because your condition 3 is there shall be no outdoor patio, then or outdoor service area. So you kind of cut both of them off.
Well, you could remove that outdoor patio. I think it's intended that it would be an outdoor patio or service area for the use.
Mr. Bordenaro back up here just a second when I ask him a question. And the reason I'm asking is I want to give you the most bang for your buck. Don't have to cut up with another application fee. If we continued this for another month, do you think you can get the information to them to have this outdoor area?
Sure. Yep.
Okay.
No problem. Yep.
Do you want to have a service area where you serve?
Well, I'd like it to. I would. What I really don't like, because I see a lot of it around, is you drive by and especially a heavy traffic area, and I do not foresee my place being where there's 50 people standing in a bunch, standing there smoking. It'd be better if I could put some seating out there and kind of keep it toned down a little bit.
Right.
No food's involved, so I think that they may be able to have drink out there. And make it look a little bit more kosher to the community.
Which means you want to serve out there. You'd have a waitress come out and take orders while they're out there.
Yep.
Yeah,
I think
that changes the ball game here.
And we need to change the plan to designate that specific area.
Sure.
I think that's to your betterment.
Yeah, that's kind of what I wanted, so I didn't have to pay the $320 fee again and come back next month.
We feel your pain.
Yeah.
And maybe you'll have that updated site plan and...
Yeah, that's no problem. We can readjust it. And I want to find out where my architect's drawing, because I had him redo the arrows and redo everything to show that...
That's what I mean, yeah.
This is what was submitted with the application. Sure. There may have been other stuff submitted with building plans
he had just...
and so forth that we don't...
He just need to get that updated.
Yeah, they sent it. Somebody has it down there, and we just must have miscommunicated.
That doesn't get transferred to us.
Right. So once I locate that down there with Candace, we'll say, oh, here it is, and let's incorporate it and get it drawn on the blueprint and approved through the right channels. Would be correct.
Okay. And if we do continue it, you get moved to the top of the heap, so you don't have to be sitting there too long.
Okay. Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else, Eric?
I guess I'm trying to think if you would, there might be a way to
I'm trying to think.
approve action for this limitation and then leave the hearing open. I don't know. I'm just trying to think of how to accommodate.
But if we approve one, doesn't the other become a separate action then?
If you wanted to reconsider just the outdoor service area at the next hearing, or if you wanted to consider the entire action.
Some good advice here said, why don't we approve the whole thing next month? That way, it cuts down a lot of record keeping.
So we're going to continue it, Mr. Chairman?
If we vote on it.
Amend it for the outdoor
Patio.
patio.
Would that be okay with the applicant? Just to verify, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
You'd be okay with that?
So we're going to vote on to continue. You're okay with that?
That's fine.
Okay.
All right.
Entertain a motion?
Being the Somerset Southside representative, I would make a motion to, what am I looking for? Continue this item to the next regularly scheduled
September 28th meeting.
28th, okay.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor, raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0. And we'll see you 28th of September. And then we'll probably be a little bit closer to thinking, well, we might have a date.
Might have a date.
I like this guy.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Item 11 is a conditional use permit at 2601 East Euclid.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, item number 11 is a request for a conditional use permit for a business selling wine, liquor, and/or beer. And the conditional use permit would allow for an occupant of the business to sell alcohol. The city of Des Moines now requires a conditional use permit for any business that derives less than or more than 40% of their business sales from alcohol or tobacco products. The applicant is proposing to open a store by the name of Cigarette Outlet, so they would be selling beer as an accessory to the cigarette store. However, since the city now considers or lumps tobacco and beer together, they would have a hard time meeting the 40% sales rule. The subject property is located on the south side of East Euclid Avenue at East 26th Street. There's currently a Papa John's Pizza in the west half of the building, and the proposed business would be operating in the east half of the building. This used to be operated by a, I think it was tobacco outlet, which has since moved 6 blocks to the east. The tobacco outlet did get a conditional use permit from the board in 1999. However, that expired since it's been vacant for more than 6 months. Here's another picture of the building. This is just the vacant lot that's adjacent to the east. This is looking to the south. You can see the strip located on East 26th Street, just south of the property. This is looking across the street. You can see that there are single-family houses directly across the street, and then there's the Prince of Peace Lutheran Church also across the street. I didn't get that in the picture, but on the consent map, you can see the Prince of Peace Lutheran Church is right here within 98 feet of the subject property, and then these houses here are within 105 feet of the subject property. As we've dealt with in the past few months, you do know that there is a moratorium right now on any new Class E liquor license that the council approves. The Class E is for the sale of wine. The council also issues Class E is for sale of liquor, whereas Class B is the wine permits and Class C is for beer permit. So there's not a moratorium currently on the B or C. However, this property is unable to apply for a Class E liquor license to sell the hard liquor.
Okay.
However, staff is hesitant to have the board consider it at this time, just because we don't really know what regulations the council are going to require. The draft of regulations that was presented at the Plan and Zoning Commission recommended in favor of last week would require at least 150 feet of separation from church, school, daycare, or public park. Where, like I mentioned earlier, this is 98 feet from a church property, so it would not meet those regulations to get a Class E liquor license. However, just having the uncertainty out there of what rules will be adopted by City Council likely in September, we've recommended that the request be continued until after the City Council has adopted the new ordinances. In talking with the applicant, they're not in favor of a continuance. They would still like to get a conditional use permit, which would allow them to apply for either a Class B wine permit or a Class C beer permit. But if staff had to make a recommendation today, we would recommend denial of liquor or of a conditional use permit, just given the proximity of these houses directly across the street, the proximity of the church, and then the proximity of the houses within 183 feet to the east on East Euclid Avenue. So we don't feel that protects the people residing in the area. Are there any questions?
Yeah. I have a question. Is it operating now?
No, it's
okay, but it did operate as a tobacco outlet?
It was a tobacco outlet. Now a totally different company wants to come in with a cigarette outlet.
Okay.
It's a brand of stores.
And then that
store too in Des Moines already.
The vacant lot that you showed in your picture, was that the same lot that Dr. Rovner addressed in his letter that he's going to develop?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Okay.
There was a letter from the property owner here that has plans to build a medical office here. So it's currently zoned C2, so that would be an allowed use there.
Bert, just so you know, first of all, have they seen any of these?
They have not.
Okay.
No, we get the cards in right up to the last minute, so it's fine.
The second thing, just so I want to make sure, if we deny this, they can't apply again for another year.
Correct.
Okay. Do they know that too?
They do now.
But they will shortly, though. Any other questions for staff?
Yeah, I've got a question.
No.
Bert, a couple months ago, we had a couple closed Super Saver gas stations, one East Euclid, one maybe Easton, if I remember. There was some discussion there. I don't recall the same statement of, well, since there's a moratorium and we're unsure, we'd rather you not. Was that different because they were also going to sell gasoline and do something else there?
Yeah, the one on Easton, they were going to open completely as a gas station, just have less than 40% of their sales come from.
Right. So it wasn't just a dedicated use.
Right.
As a Class E store. It had
East Euclid, they did know that they would only be able to apply for a B or C.
A B or C in that case. Okay. Thanks for the clarification.
I got one other question.
Go ahead.
Is there anything on the docket for the City Council to take this up?
Well, Planning and Zoning Commission made their recommendation last Thursday night, so on August 29th, the City Council will receive the Plan and Zoning Commission's recommendation and then set their date of public hearing.
Okay.
Like, I assume it'll be for September 12th.
So my point is that Mr. Chairman said if we vote it down, they can't apply for a year. If the City Council is going to take it up in the next few months, I would think the applicant would want to know that.
Yes. Thank you, Brooke.
Yeah, and even if the board denies their conditional use permit, they could still open a cigarette outlet store and just sell tobacco products. They just wouldn't be able to get a liquor license to sell alcohol. Yeah.
Any other questions for staff? Thanks, Bert. Applicant or representative of the applicant?
Michael Grip, president of Cigarette Outlet, also president of J&M Realty, the owner of the building which we just purchased last 2 weeks ago. 2208 East 11th Street, Davenport, Iowa, 52803. I don't know if I should continue because we don't want to get voted down. That was kind of
we're kind of picking up, yeah.
Yeah, but I guess I'll be honest with you. I'll say my piece here. We recently purchased it in 2601. We've been in negotiations. It struck my interest about a year ago when our competition moved out. We also own a realty company, At this time, we didn't have these issues that have come up. The price was too high. We dealt with the Lundbergs, and we finally got in a position where they dropped the price. We just decided to pull the trigger and buy it, knowing that this stuff was in front of us. So that's where we're at. Matt Lundberg and I have become friends because we've been dealing with this a year. We don't know if it's rentable. We've bought the building at a good price. Papa John's is locked in with us. We also rent to Papa John's in Clinton. So our intentions are really not to put a cigarette store there unless we could get beer. We're more than willing to drop the liquor. We're in no hurry. We got the building. I've had somebody contact me about putting a tattoo place in there. We're not big on chasing rents. We're in the cigarette business. It's what we do. We got 16 stores in Iowa. We're the second biggest tobacco store chain in Iowa. We're located in Davenport, Iowa. We've been 12 years in Des Moines. We're the same outfit that took over the one on East University, the old Napa, and we spent $100,000 in that place, and that business is doing really well for us. We're age restricted. You don't come in our store unless you're a minor. I mean, unless you're an adult. We stop you. Excuse me.
Freudian slip.
I'm also not good at speaking.
They had me frozen.
Yeah. So we enforce it. We actually took it a step further. We actually have a computer system now that's in place in all the stores where you can't make the sale. If you don't have an ID it scans, you don't make the sale. The drawer does not even open. So simple. No ID, no sale. I've got a bid here for landscaping for $4,400 that just came in. We own a bunch of properties. We take care of the properties. We're kind of in a spot. We went ahead and pulled the trigger, and it's not cash flowing with Papa John's, but it's close. But in talking to the Lundbergs, and we don't know what else would go in there. I mean, I guess if somebody would come to me right now and would rent it, we'd probably rent it to them and move on. We don't want to cause any troubles.
No,
but whether we put a cigarette tobacco store in there without beer, it makes it tough, especially with our competition 6 blocks down, and they've got beer.
Well, I think your alternatives aren't very good here. If you're going to make us vote on it today.
No, I'm not.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if you ask for a continuance, I think we might be in agreement to give you that. What that'll do is give you two things that'll help. We'll find out what the city council's persuasion is on it, and the second thing it's going to do, let you get a chance to take a look at all these people that are objecting and go talk to them, because there's nothing that works better than you getting into the neighborhood, talking to people, go across the street, across the church, tell them just what you told us,
right?
And that might change their view of having you come in as a neighbor.
Okay.
So,
hopefully we'd be more willing to do that.
So would you request a continuance then, till the September 28th meeting?
Yes.
Okay. Any other questions for the applicant?
No, but the staff will. The staff will Xerox the comment cards so you can take them with you, so you have them.
Okay.
All right.
Is that a sufficient time?
Mike just told me the same thing.
Yeah, because the city council doesn't proceed.
September 28th, you think that's too soon, Eric, or you asked for indefinite?
Well, depends on if it becomes an issue at the council and they want to continue it. That would probably be the soonest.
But you have to continue it to a time certain.
Yeah.
How about 90 days or something?
90? I'm gay. 90, that puts you into what,
end of the
November?
Year.
3 mortgage payments. Yeah, we're fine.
That's what I was running that through my mind.
Yeah, we can work it. No, that's fine.
Okay.
Before we go
That's
too far,
fine.
Sue has a good point that she was saying that the council may actually be changing the requirements for beer and wine licenses as well. Before I was just under the understanding it was liquor only, but she's saying now they're moving on the route of changing beer and wine as well. So
you need to know that.
It might be good to get the approval on his behalf to get the approval for the beer and wine now. Like I said, staff would recommend denial of that, but I'm saying to put all the information out there, to be fair.
I think it'd be a tough sell with all the red that's in there. I would like to see you at least get out and talk to the people, and we can deal with what the city council comes up with. But because they can go any way they want to. No.
We'll go by our reputation. We've been here for 12 years on East University, which is high profile, and you can go back. We haven't had hardly any trouble there. So, but yeah, we're willing to do whatever. We're on the spot.
This may not be just, well, this is kind of for the appellant. If you could just open a tobacco store there tomorrow, I know that's not your primary interest, but would you consider just doing that? Or is that worth?
It would make it tough with competition so close to us.
Right, that sells more than just tobacco.
Yeah, like I say, our whole intentions of this started a year ago because we seen they approached us because obviously we're their competitor.
Right.
And,
right.
you know, the price was too high, and then obviously we just, so we're,
okay.
Yeah. And I'm not saying we would consider it, whether
just curious.
But preferably I'd rent it to somebody that would want to rent it, but they haven't had much luck. So.
All right. Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
So 90 days, you're okay?
We're fine.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Do we have any other questions for staff?
One question for staff. And this might be redundant, and maybe we're past this, but if he just wanted to open a tobacco store, would we still have to approve that?
No, we would consider that.
Okay. All right. All right. So if he, he could open his tobacco store tomorrow, get some rent, and if he can do liquor or beer later, after the new rules are in, fine. I guess that's trying to find some avenue here.
Well, I will entertain a motion to accept staff recommendation. Except with make it a 90-day or 3-month or whatever. When's a November meeting? That's moved up, isn't it? Because of Thanksgiving?
Yeah, 2.
Third Wednesday is the 16th.
I'd say November 16th.
Yes.
All right.
I'd make a motion to continue this to the November 16th regularly scheduled meeting.
There a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, been moved and seconded. All those in favor, raise your hand, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 7-0. We'll see you in November. Hopefully the dice will roll for you.
Thank you.
You bet. But make sure you see those neighbors, my gosh.
No matter. Yeah, tobacco or anything. Yeah.
Do I need a form? Should I have to sign something? I've never been through this before. Is this a conversation? Or?
You can talk there.
Yeah, they've been through these many times, so he'll help you out.
Okay, thank you.
You bet. Okay, item 12 is a variance at 676 59th Street.
There it is.
The subject property is off the end of Woodland where it tees into 59th Street, so it's straight off the west end of that. This is the subject home, and this is the north side of the house, and then the subject addition would be off to the south side of the house towards the other property line. This is a sketch that shows the area, and we're considering this addition that has to comply with setback, just like any other enclosed portion of the structure. I'm going to hand the cards we have. It's being called a pergola, so it's going to have an open kind of lattice type feel to it, I suppose, if you want to call it that. But because it's attached to the building or against the building within proximity, it will also have to meet building code requirements for separation and fire safety, which might include obtaining easements across the property to the south to get that ability to go right to the zero property line. So in addition to the variance, there'll have to be stipulations done under the building code as well. In this case, it would extend the full distance between the dwelling and the property line, so there would be no, it would, in order to maintain it, it would also have to be maintained from off the property to the south as well. In this case, I don't know if there's any real justification to that can be made, or nothing was demonstrated, said that this pergola has to extend clear to the property line. I think that in looking at this, something that would pull it back a little bit from the property line would be able to be accomplished and still have the similar enjoyment of what they're trying to do here. So when we looked at this as a variance, staff didn't believe they were able to demonstrate the variance criteria. We did think that an exception would be reasonable and that could be done and still be in character with the surrounding neighborhood, subject to some conditions. We want to make sure that it meets all building codes, and by going with the exception, we believe they can achieve that fairly easily. Also, that it would be constructed in accordance with a permit, and that it also would not extend more than 9 feet above the deck that it's already in place, that it would be constructed over the top of. So, and that will keep it at a low profile. We did get comment cards that are being passed around in favor and in objection. The immediate property owner to the south is in favor, so if, in terms of those concerns with getting some kind of consent for a no build or something, if you do grant the full variance, at least there's some consent to this request by the immediate property owner to the south.
Eric, can you put the picture back up on the, yeah, so this would be sitting behind the fence?
Yeah, this, well, actually I think it would be, if you see where the chimney is, so if you look at the sketch here, it's actually the width of almost everything to the west of the chimney. So
okay.
I would think it would sit behind the fence, and the appellant may be able to. The fence wasn't shown on the diagram, so that would be a question for the appellant, but it appears that it would sit behind the fence.
And then that second tree, of course, I'll probably have to ask the applicant.
Back in this area?
Yeah.
And back
there, yeah.
Again, that appears to be behind the house. Again, though, there's no indication that trees would be removed as a result. So.
And that fence goes all the way around the backyard? That wood fence? Or does it just go that one?
I didn't actually visit this site, so I can't speak to that specifically. See if the photos reveal anything. It appears there's only fence on that side in front of the house. I'll let the appellant also answer that question.
Thanks, Eric.
Eric, as you see the fence, and you'll see the neighbor's driveway to the south, is that a concrete addition to the driveway that runs up there, or what is it?
It looks like it's some kind of retaining wall, that there was a berm maybe that was done for planting, or...
I see.
It's hard to tell if that, it looks...
But it looks like that's the lot line.
Yeah, that's probably, give or take a foot or so. We find that many times these things aren't right on the property line, but that's the perceived property line. And the edge of the fence would probably also be considered the perceived property line. If you look at the aerial kind of, this kind of shows the extent of the impervious area. Mm-hmm. So, as you get towards this pergola, there's a less and less area between the property line and the edge of the neighbor's driveway pavement. So, but when you look at it from the front, there appears to be several feet. Mm-hmm. So that sort of tapers narrower as you go to the west.
Now, does that property owner own the property directly behind? If you put that map back up, do they own, because it doesn't show a building on the property behind them, so did they own the whole?
It doesn't.
The one you had before?
It doesn't have the same property name to it.
Okay.
So.
Okay, got it.
There's a diversity of ownership.
All right.
Throughout this. I'm sorry, this would be the
That's the property, okay. But there's not a house on there, that piece of property. It didn't look like it from your first one, but maybe there is.
Yeah, there's a
Kind of looks like.
Okay.
Is it this
Yep.
one maybe you're thinking of?
Yes,
Okay.
must be, yeah. Okay, there is a house there, okay. Okay.
Any other questions for staff? Thanks, Eric. Applicant or representative of the applicant?
Hello, my name's Tony Delancey. I live at 676 59th Street in Des Moines, Iowa. I'm applying for the construction of a pergola roof. First of all, the deck has been built. It's below 36 inches tall, so I was able to go up to the property line. Got a permit and the final inspection as well. So the deck's good to go. Now the question is, do we get to build a roof over the top of it or not?
Let me ask you, the deck goes all the way to the property line?
It goes up to the privacy fence.
Oh, okay.
Yep. And I actually have a photograph of that as well.
We could use it.
Here's from the backyard. And so what we're requesting is approximately halfway from the deck, from the front privacy fence, where the house ends, is just to have an extension of a pergola shaded roof going over the top of the deck. That exact area has built-in bench seating. That would end, and then the other 12 feet of the deck is all wide open, no seating, and we're not wanting to put the shade roof over the top of that. And I do have kind of a different angle there from the photograph you had questions on before. So you can see this is all the planting area. Comes up to the privacy fence. I'll slide this more. There we go.
Your fence.
It is my fence. My next door neighbor, this roof was a combination effort between Ann Proctor, my neighbor to the south, who I share property with. She's a budding gardener. She's on the Waterbury, Secret Gardens of Waterbury tour. Landscaping is her life since she's retired. And so she thought the idea of a pergola roof over the top of that fence would be very nice for her property. You can see with the privacy fence there, she puts up kind of like it looks like a wrought iron bracings up there, and then has hanging plants and flowers and vines and all kinds of things that she uses with the privacy fence there. A couple examples of kind of what we're after for a pergola roof. This would be like the Iowa State Fairgrounds at their display gardens. It's the walkway to go in there. Something along these lines. This one in particular, simply because we have a colonial house. It is a rectangle. Our deck, we try to use rectangular planks to go along with that, and just keep with the style of the architecture. Just go with something that's more blocky, as opposed to Ped Mall, Iowa City, which is very more looping and just the design of it for the aesthetics. Now, as far as why we would want it up to the property line as opposed to 5 feet back from the property line, the main reason of that is my neighbor to the south would like it up to the property line, so it's kind of ornamental for her yard as well, in this kind of a fashion with her her garden tours and things. The reason why I would like it up there is with our bench seating up along the fence here, that would not be shaded if